Hi. I'm just here to announce the first reader. So hi, I'm Tyler. I've been emailing, sorry. And our first reader will be David Carstens.
Hi, I'm David, and I have a cold, and so, and I also haven't timed this reading out at all, so I'm just going to kind of go, and Tyler will get mad at me when I've gone too far. The story is called A Girl and Her Mother. It was a finalist in Glimmer Train's Family Matters short story contest, and I haven't looked at it since I submitted it to that, so we'll see how this goes. I entered through the dog door. The back door was meant to be usable, but the hinges had rusted and the house had shifted on its foundation, and so it could not be opened. I followed the train tracks home from school. In the spring, I would wear these little dresses to school. They had frills and were wrinkled around the front and ended just above the knee. I would go around to the back porch and get on my hands and knees and push myself through the dog door. The first few times it was demeaning. Now it was just second nature. The floorboards would scrape at my knees, and sometimes I would get splinters from the old wood. The dog door led into the kitchen, which was a wreck, and the air smelled like dust and rot, and there were unwashed dishes piled in the sink and half-eaten, decayed TV dinners stacked in the trash can in the corner. Every now and again, Mother would ask me to clean the kitchen. Sometimes I would. She never did. When I entered the house, I could hear Mother in the living room watching television. She watched television every day. The machine was broken and had no sound, and so Mother would turn on the radio in the corner, and it would play static. That static filled every corner of the house, and the television could get a handful of different channels. Remember when there were only a few channels? I do. And the picture always came in fuzzy or out of focus. Mother never left the house, and sometimes neighbors would bring groceries over and leave them by the front door. I think they thought that she was sick. Maybe she was sick. I would squeeze my head through the undersized slot at the bottom of the back door and emerge into the world outside, and I would go around to the front door, and I would get the groceries and bring them inside. They came in through the dog door too. Writing about the past is hard. Maybe not all of the past. I can write about John just fine. We met in college. After I got out of that small Tennessee town, I fled north, as far from cowboys, country music, and Dixieland as I could. I got a decent scholarship to a little college on the East Coast. I didn't know what I would study, only that I wanted to get away. There I met John. We stayed together for a long time, and he got down on one knee, and I said yes. We moved farther north, Toronto now. We moved for John's work. I would follow him anywhere, probably. He's a good man, and at the rate I'm going, it feels like I'll probably end up at the North Pole. Maybe I will someday. A little cold never hurt anyone. We got married, and pretty soon we had a kid. Now another's on the way. We're not in the past anymore now. We've made it to the present. But that past wasn't so hard to understand. It's childhood that's hard. My childhood. And my shrink told me to try writing about it so that I could maybe understand it. And I have my own kids now, so here I am. I had come home that day with a little yellow disciplinary slip for Mother to sign. I had come home with a black eye, too. The slip worried me more. I didn't like school. It was too long, and Mother agreed, but the state didn't. I got to school late that day, and my boots were worn and muddy from the walk to school, and so I snuck over to the bathroom to try to wash them off. I got to school late that day, and my boots were worn and muddy from the walk to school. I just completely reread that sentence. The kids at school always looked at me funny because my hair was messy, or it was greasy, or my clothes were dirty and wrinkled or out of style, and so I wanted to wash my boots. The kids were already all in the classrooms, and maybe they wouldn't notice that they were dirty. The girls' bathroom smelled like chlorine, and it was small and cramped and filled with this dim, nauseating fluorescent light, and it was empty except for me. I took off my boots and stood in front of the sink. I really wasn't much taller than the sink's porcelain body, and so I could see all the rusty iron piping running along its bottom. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. I stared at my clothes. They were wrinkled. I stared at my eyes. They were tired. I stared at my hair. It was messy, and I ran my hands through it, trying to fix it and to flatten it out. It wouldn't change, and it wouldn't flatten, or even begin to look even the smallest bit presentable or fashionable or even intentional, so I gave up. Mother had gotten rid of all the mirrors in our house, smashed them all in the backyard. She said that they weren't good for us. We should focus more on the world around us. Don't focus on yourself, honey, she said. Don't be vain. That's what television was for, to look outwards, to the world around us, to see our surroundings clearly. That's what she said, and if you weren't careful, you might cut your feet on the shards of glass in the yard. I set my boots in the sink, turned on the water, and watched as it flowed over their gray-black exterior. They were just a touch too big for my feet. I worked my hands around the boots, pulling caked mud from their sides and doing my best to polish them with only my hands. And they got to a point where if you squinted your eyes, they could be mistaken as new. Still, I kept running my hands over them, and I tried to make some of the hand soap from the dispenser. I tried to use some of the hand soap from the dispenser next to the sink to make them shinier, because I wanted them to be as nice as I could make them. Eventually, I realized that I really was quite late, and that my teachers would probably be looking for me, and I didn't want their concern. I slipped the boots on and I felt that the soles of the shoes had been soaked through with water. What an idiot I was. What an idiot. And I said a bad word under my breath that I had heard some other kids use earlier in the week when they thought the teachers weren't listening. And I tried to dry them out with paper towels, but it didn't work, and so I put my feet in them again, and water surrounded my toes and pooled up around my heels. I took a step and felt them squelch beneath my feet, and they made a bit of noise with every next step I took. Squelch, squelch, squelch. I made my way to class, and I think that's probably a good place to stop. Next, we have Kaiya Case.
Close.
Kaiya Case?
Yeah.
Perfect, second try. That was 4 pages of like a 30-page story. For some reason you want to hear the rest, come talk to me and I'll give it to you.
Okay, hi, I'm Kaiya. I'm a freshman and care associate, though I think both of those things are relatively obvious. I write mostly poetry and kind of have a weakness for flowery language and a lot of like clever wordplay, plus long pretentious titles, which I'm not really good at writing, but I try anyway. So speaking of, the first piece is called "Kindly Get Off My Back, Please, I'm Still Waiting for It to Sprout." What does it say about me that I can breathe at high altitudes and even underwater, but not while watching certain movies or confined to an A-line dress? I'm not afraid of graveyards, but dead cows or chickens or pigs or plants or cells are something else entirely. In through the nose and out through the nose and out through the mouth and out through the ears. Suffocating gives me bat wings, fuck, angel feathers, I feel fresh leather beautiful, scraped out smooth beautiful, the kind of beautiful only achieved through long nails and brittle bones and sharp tongues that leave striations across the backs of front teeth, slim grooves, Listerine only aqueduct kind of beautiful. Swish and spit. Not that I could ever believe the cosmos knew what I wouldn't eat for lunch next week, but I find it fun to file myself away. So I was always just a little bit annoyed when the communal middle school bathroom copy Tiger Beat told me I was stuck down here on Earth when I knew I was really meant to fly. Well, at least I'm only 2 days off, so let's call it the cusp, and maybe one day the wind will just give in and lift me off my feet. Or maybe water will take pity on me instead, and at least I'll float when both the dirt and the breeze grow too old to put up with playing pretend, tipping me over and pouring me out. What does it say about me that I would rather suffocate than sink? Don't you dare bury me even 1 foot under in the same place as all those other little girls I never wanted to be anything like. It's not that I'm afraid of graveyards, not that I believe in anything after overwhelming black, but just in case I do. Finally get the chance to grow wings. I can't have 400 pounds of fine mahogany wasted weighing me down. I'd rather have an open casket, fresh formaldehyde kind of beautiful. I'd rather let fire take me in. I'd rather burn. That's the first one. Yeah, I've always enjoyed writing poetry. Though I've recently developed kind of a similar interest in flash fiction. I don't think I'm that good at that one, but I really admire those who do it well. It's funny, I kind of gravitate towards those more condensed literary mediums, though I have a tendency to always write too much otherwise, and I kind of rationalize that as I think poetry has become kind of a good sponge for my rather chronic overthinking. I plan to read 2 pieces, that was the first, from a sort of short portfolio I put together recently, and decided to call, again with the long title Vice, The Etiquette of Dressing for One's Own Funeral, Ramblings on New Womanhood. It's all rather personal and specific, as I feel like that tends to consistently wind up the work I'm most proud of. It has a lot of common motifs and a lot of the alliteration, assonance, and consonants that I tend to be a sucker for. It's over themes of self-image and the contradictions within both myself and kind of modern femininity as a whole, all while trying never to take myself too seriously, I hope. Now I swear not everything I write has one, but bear with me for one last overly complicated title. So the second and last piece I'll read is Things I Only Admit Around 3 a.m. or after putting on a full face of makeup to go absolutely nowhere. 1. Loneliness is just as wonderfully romantic as it is difficult to mold a life around. And 2, it is an underappreciated art to balance the tightrope between caring far too much and none at all. 3, I think it's possible to live in the black and white and full grayscale all at once, and maybe even for occasionally a crushed up blackberry kind of red. 5, I'm in love. 6, few things scare me more than the sense I still will be in 4 years' time. Nothing more than a leech out of water, consistently convinced. 7, I'm a lone wolf, merely flirting with sheepskin Sherpa in the Macy's dressing room mirror just because. 8, I like trying on opulence, ballroom attire I'll never buy until I do. 9, if everyone was blind, I would own 7 different wedding dresses from 7 different decades, and the 1800s hoop skirt would be difficult to fit through doorways, but I wouldn't care. 10, I am desperate to feel at once a woman and not a trope. 11, it scares me more that as hard as I try to mend Alice's broken back, one of these days we'll both realize I've been standing on the globe all along, either too proud or too stupid to admit I was stuck down here on Earth. 12, even when offered wax wings, either a pessimist or a realist without the will to make them beat. 13, I can only speak hollow, spitting back the dictionary word for word to spell out an introduction and skip to the epilogue. 14, I buried an online vocabulary quiz I took once in 11th grade, which told me I was Shakespeare in a folder as a screenshot labeled fluke, but 15, I'm still proud of it. 16, I keep a hidden photo album of self-portraits no one will ever see to catalog myself, but 17, I still skip all the years between 3 and 15. 18, the future feels like the ladder of 2 pages or playing cards I happened to shove my index finger in between while flipping through until where did the time go fell out of my mouth. 19, I don't know if I'll ever be able to spell out love you or miss you without wincing, at least without omitting the I, even if it's true. And 20, I'm sorry for that, even if I never tried to change. 21, I wish I could slip everything into neat little boxes like sonnets or those little learning puzzles meant for toddlers. I wish I could grip everything with my pudgy little mitts like worms after a bath, all the colors and the shapes and the space and the time, and press them into Play-Doh molds and sculpt a masterpiece. 22, every time I think I can touch happy, some pretty painted wood block is too square for the cylinder hole. And 23, here I am, headphones and lights off, smearing unset foundation against the sheets. Thanks. Our next reader is Courtney Felle.
Close, Felle.
Felle.
So as a prequel to this, I currently can't hear out of the entire left side of my face. My ear is really swollen, so if I'm really loud, please blame it on my ear. I'm loud anyway, but like that's a good excuse. And it also segues well into the first poem I want to read, which is pretty aptly titled Poem for My Swollen Ear. 5 days have passed and there's still so much fluid in my ear. I don't know why. Left. The doctor says I have an infection. I can't hear her. I take the meds. Nothing clears. I call again. I'm sitting in my kitchen reading Carrie Brownstein's memoir and listening to Modern Girl. The nurse refuses to give me eardrops and tells me it may take a month to feel any relief. I drive to urgent care and I shake in the parking lot. Years of chronic pain care or lack of care have taught me to fear fault in the healthcare system, or in myself in ways the healthcare system can't or won't find. I don't expect much. This is draining and I want my ear to drain. I feel full and exhausted. In the waiting room, I sing to myself, my whole life looks like a picture of a sunny day, and when I poke it, the photo paper rips. My heart has a hole that didn't close at birth, and the doctors don't know why. They say it makes me pale and more prone to migraines, but this is a theory more than a cause, and anyway I want someone to blame. I want a cure they won't give me. In childhood pictures, my eyes always squint because I liked looking into the sun, a hole in the sky I could make turn dark. I don't know if I made up these memories. I've always looked so able, beyond my body. I've always looked so lost, left. There's a windstorm outside the waiting room window that's making everything shudder. My car is broken and the stereo in the loaner sounds scratchy, but I don't know if it's just me and my ear. This doctor says I do not and did not have an infection, and she gives me a decongestant. Tells me to sleep on my left side and spray mist up my nose until it clears. Call an ear specialist if it doesn't drain in another few weeks. I cry in my car. Infection comes from the Latin for to spoil or to stain, but that comes from adding in to the Latin for to make or to make up, to appoint or to appointment. About an hour from my hometown, on a highway stop I drive through the day before I drop into urgent care, there's a town full of girls who 5 years before me started shaking with no cause, and the same neurologist I have diagnosed them with mass psychogenic illness, making it up. I am plagued by this misunderstanding, and I want someone to blame. Anger makes me a modern girl, but I know this girlhood shouldn't also make me sick. There's an explanation that isn't just this happens to girls, and girls should sit around and wait. There's something the doctors could find if they cared enough to look further. I'm scared and I want to punch a doctor in the face. I have so much anger I feel is cruelty, but it can't match their system. Cruelty comes from fear, which means they hold the power, and so my anger is theoretical more than causal. Anyway, the sky today is pale, overcast, and undertreated. There's no sun for me to stare into. Nothing has changed. I can't imagine what could stop this swelling. So that's a little more depressing, so I want to read something a little bit lighter. I tend to think of this poem, which also has a long, elaborate title for no reason, that moves sort of into the first line, as a love poem to Norton 227.
Yes!
Yes! There are people here who lived in Norton 227, my CA from my first year when I lived in Norton. It's a great room, it's a great place. And so this is laying myself onto the floor of my friend's dorm room like a dead girl ghost or a gaping wound. And I'm just going to sort of start reading. My tongue rolls the word queerness for the first time. My stomach feels sick, and I imagine my grandfather slurring those queers at the gay couple on The Price is Right. My mother looking at me in a way I can't digest, then looking away. Sometimes I feel like the big color wheel spinning and never landing, always caught between seen and gone. The spring after I come out, a stranger sees a girl lying in my lap and asks how much she drank, if she's okay, alive. I'm not dead, just gay, she says, like there's a difference, like anybody cares about the difference. She doesn't move. In my grandfather's dictionary, to queer means to spoil or ruin, though whether we're the ones spoiling or the ones being ruined never gets defined. I dread calling home and spend nights on my friend's floor instead, saying, why do I still feel so guilty? Why do I still feel so repressed? Is it my fault I never got over it? My friend says her parents never stopped calling her partner her friend, never stopped trying to kill the tender parts of her. Maybe I'm still trying to kill something too, whispering the same word over and over, hoping to destroy it, asking myself permission. I want to find a land to call my own, a home in the hurt. I've never lived anywhere else. I want to stop spinning, to listen to the same song my friend sent us over and over, Nana Grizzle's old grit voice near midnight when we sing about finding a family somewhere in the ruins of the expectations we once knew. I start to hope we ruin them. I start to hope we never let go. I want the whole world to know we jumped in head first, widened our own wounds until they flared in technicolor, queered everything we could touch.
Tyler for organizing this. I'm Virginia, and I'm going to read 3 older pieces that you may have heard if you've come to Kenyon Magnetic Voices events in the past, and then I'll end on a new one. But this first piece I wrote as I was considering how arbitrary Western beauty standards are and the process of learning them consciously as we age. So this piece is entitled The Cosmos. We started wearing men's deodorant in middle school, drenched in the discovery that drugstore sticks of soapy roses could not contain our infernos. At 13, I acquire all the heat of Hades, my armpits stain, through science class and soccer practice, puberty its own form of purgatory. I never understood the invention of the training bra, the equation of beauty to suppressing or taming whatever is most natural. Yet even this does not prepare us for the stench of 6th period, extra laps, the the gravitational pull of a best friend's trampoline. What is the word for a suicide, but slower? The choice to destroy myself gradually. I am trying to be enough. I am unlearning everything, like fuck perfume, I smell of scalp and sunflowers, something they cannot name. Fuck a manicure, the invitation to be motionless, polish the most flexible parts of me. My ankles will never render themselves wholly, hacked by the heel of a razor scooter. Still, you sold me waterproof mascara, claiming even your grief must be beautiful. Even your scars shouldn't leave stains. Every birthday candle wish list tick above my bedpost. This is the year I stop fighting, stop biting, stop brushing, stop braiding, stop shaming, stop shaving the hair. Above my underarms, eyebrow, upper thigh, forearm, I did not enter your universe hating myself. I studied slaughter consciously. And on a similar note, I wrote this next piece in an attempt to reclaim the act of objectification and to consider what I would want to be should someone choose to reduce me to purely physical qualities. So this is entitled A List of Things to Call Us Besides Beautiful. A forest fire, firecracker, mere cracked in surrender, 2 bare feet on a tire swing, tethered to magnolia. Swirls of strawberry frosting over stunning any day. The bike ride to the grocery store for lemon curd or ginger, the outline of a cartwheel. Chamomile, a seatbelt, anything unafraid. An umbrella, the smell of best friend's jean jacket. A day spent without a phone, without a bra, no, a day spent without plans. Chewing gum after coffee breath, tongue over teeth after braces off, a paintbrush, belly laughs, the opposite of loneliness, raindrop-soaked azaleas, undaunted or the sunset, 6,000 flimsy synonyms, thesaurus entry folded into a paper snowflake. Sheet music, a cootie catcher, origami, no, a love letter, Saturn, a meteor, any fervent constellation I have found. You cannot photograph the night sky without apologizing first. Insisting, she was better in person. And then this one is about my attempts to redefine God for myself outside of organized religion and just in my personal life. It's entitled Genesis. I like to think that God grew weed in the Garden of Eden. That Eve, before she was blamed and banished, rolled joints and smoked them alone, blew smoke rings to scorch off each rib of Adam. In my copy of Genesis, she spits out the apple core, sings, I am anything but where I came from. Not your mate or maid or bitch, the scapegoat for sins we shared equal parts of. In my senior year religion class, I got so good at doodling vines and leaves on loose leaf, at drowning out a man who preached abstinence as birth control and birth control as heresy, and heresy as women refusing to water the seeds planted in our bellies. Men love to claim responsibility for our growth until that growth comes from our tummies, so forgive me for thinking period blood was the same sort of sacred as stigmata, same as Eucharist wine. You claim they all hold life. But there are wiser things said on the sleepover floor than at the pulpit on most Sundays, better prayers inscribed on bathroom stalls, and if I never become a mother, I've given birth before. Raised tulip bulbs, raised bread. I search for the scripture verse saying I go to hell for wanting Exodus or a push-up bra. Thank you. This one I wrote last night, so content warning for gun violence or hate crimes, feel free to step outside. But I think it's so true what people say about only understanding the place you were raised in or the people who raised you after you've left. And in this case, I was home for spring break and just did a lot of thinking as I had been away at school for a long time and finally re-entered that environment. So this is about my parents. It's called Perennials. When he was not yet a landscape architect, when he was not yet my father designed my mother a hydrangea garden, scoffing at the men before him who had brought her supermarket roses. In my family, we measure love in what you are willing to grow with someone. I consider this the morning after 50 people are murdered in a mosque in New Zealand, when my ankles brush the crocuses he buried last autumn. As bullets rained in a synagogue in Pittsburgh, he prayed for precipitation. I return home to two people who met on the steps of a church, who do not question the existence of a God so long as somewhere something blooms. But who were our parents to tell us they loved us as often as they did, to plant perennials when next year is still a concept? Thank you so much. The next person is Dani Martinez.
Hello everyone, I'm Dani. I'm a sophomore. So just a warning, this piece is about having done competitive gymnastics for 10 years, so it can get kind of gnarly. So I just wanted to tell you, you can step out if it gets a little much, and it's probably fine. All right. So 13 short and occasionally gross anecdotes involving flips, kips, and rips. 1. Let me introduce you. We liked Tish. We didn't realize Melinda was as passive-aggressive as she ended up being. We loved Vlad as if he were our own very, very beer-bellied, very Russian grandfather. We loved Millie in a similar way, but if you replace the words Russian grandfather with Russian grandmother. Jill was the villain of our story. Angela was the older sister. And Danielle, well, Danielle was my namesake I dreaded with every throbbing nerve inside of me. 2. Our villain. All it took was for Jill to say something so minimally, kind of slightly not verbally abusive, such as, "The round-off back tuck wasn't a shit show this time, congrats!" And I would walk away from the floor feeling absolutely triumphant, as if I had won a war. In Jill's demented world, it's almost as if I had. 3. The impossible split. The coaches would set up mats in the rhythmic gymnastics room that were almost as tall as us. They'd make us put one leg on the mat and the other on the ground in a seemingly impossible and excruciating split. But I was tough. I never cried. Some of the others did, but I kept a straight face and never let them know I was in the sort of pain that exceeded a kind of threshold, the kind that would not really feel like anything after a while. I vividly remember the rhythmic gymnasts watching on in horror as they stood with their ribbons hanging loosely from their hands, and I would say it's safe to draw a cynical yet comically golden comparison between their loose ribbons with our eventually loose hamstrings. Our approximate age at that time, 8. 4. My Russian beer-bellied hero. Vlad would bring me and my teammates to the upper vault level to give us pep talks. He was the only one I truly loved seeing. With his heavy Russian accent, he would say, and bear with me, "Girls, sit down. Now what you are doing vault, and this is sport. Very hard sport, so you must work hard. This not like chess or anything, this gymnastics. This difficult stuff. You work hard and it pay off." True story. Kip of death. I was only 12 and I'd already experienced irreversible pain. I once missed a kip, the gravity-defying move to get your body up on the bar, on the highest of the uneven bars, to find my fingers grasping for a phantom bar that had tricked me of its existence, and then fell headfirst away from the matted area. I came close to breaking my neck. Luckily, I landed just right, so I simply couldn't move my head for a week, and then continued to flip after a quick recovery. We would all get gnarly rips on the palms of our hands after going on the bars. They were so gnarly that there would be an entire palm-sized flap of skin that hung off of our hands that would have to be cut off with tiny scissors in the gym bathroom while we would grit our teeth and hold back many tears. This was around the time I started getting my headaches. They were inevitable. Every afternoon on the way to gymnastics, I knew that on the way back home, I would be suffering, and I was always right. 6. Tish's tongue. Tish used to tell us a story of when she was little. In the story, she was running towards the springboard to do the vault, and she stuck her tongue out at her coach. As she jumped onto the springboard, her teeth jammed into the soft bed of her tongue. She was rushed to a hospital, and her teeth were forcibly ripped out of her bloody tongue. She had to get stitches. I never got what the moral of that story was. After hearing it, we wouldn't even think of making a slightly silly face to one of our teammates while making our way towards the springboard. And to this day, as I write this in my dorm room, almost a decade after quitting gymnastics, Tongues grossed the hell out of me. 7, blood. On my very first day on the competitive team, at the age of 6, we were ending our practice at the beam. I nicked my nose while rolling forward, and an unnatural stream of blood came warmly pouring towards my toes. My coaches rushed me towards the bathroom with an ice pack and a tissue box. My mother found me sitting there nonchalantly at the end of practice, striking my shoulders and saying, "I'm okay." Who could imagine what I had in store for the next 7 or so years? 8, earrings. In my earlier days on the competitive team, I wore small gold hoop earrings. As I was practicing my dismount, my earring got stuck on the squishy material of the balance beam. The gymnastics gods were with me that day. Side note, I wonder who the gymnastics gods would be if we as a society had to choose. Even though she's still alive, I think we can all agree that Nadia Comaneci would be one of them. But if I had jerked my head up, I would have ripped my earlobe open, but I stayed put. I never wore non-stud earrings to gymnastics ever again. The feeling of being attached to the beam at such an intimate and humiliating angle traumatized me in a way which all the physical pain gymnastics had brought me had never been able to do. 9, muscle. I was hella ripped. 10, Blue Moon. We were allowed to choose the music for our floor routines. I remember sitting on the spring floor with a boombox and a CD book sprawled out in front of me. I ended up picking Blue Moon and couldn't have had more fun with it. In Melinda's exact words, I wowed the judges with that routine. Internal citation, Melinda the passive-aggressive lady, circa 2010. 11, Danielle's caffeine. I joined the Jersey Optional Gymnastics Association, or JOGA, and Danielle became my primary coach. This is when I was a bit older, and with more age came more verbal abuse. Danielle often joked that if she didn't get her caffeine in time, she would have a bad day, and would therefore make our days bad as well. If her day was indeed bad, she and the other coaches would choose to sit on our backs as we did push-ups, army drill style. 12, being blind one day. We once arrived at a meet about an hour away when I realized that I had left my contacts at home. Note, I am very nearsighted. Nonetheless, I competed. I relied on the powers of muscle memory and still walked away with a top 3 all-around medal. 13, but like, what now? Competitive gymnastics, being the main part of my life from about the ages of 3 to 13, was painful and traumatic. It caused some actual physical damage. My neck burns every day if I sit still for too long, my right heel starts throbbing after walking for more than 20 minutes, and each joint creaks similarly to the hinges of a rusty door. But, and there is a but, I would not trade in my experience for anything in the world. The rips, the kips, the flips, they all prepared me for the world's real punches in the gut, the world's impossible stretches, the world's cuts and scratches and strained bones and muscles and soreness and crying and screaming and kicking and landing on the wrong part of the foot and sprains and brokenness and falls and migraines and disappointments. All of it. Thank you. It's Claire Oleson.
Hello, I'm Claire, and I'm a little bit shorter. I've got 3 brief poems for you all. The title of them is also the first line, so I'm kind of just going to dive in. Ephemera could be the word for a body gone to clean and separate terms, for marrow and rust, and whatever monosyllable cradles your eye color, then I should say that I saw your dad across the highway last night, standing in the same sort of dark that I like to think happens to the aquarium when it's closed. Who told anyone that they could stand somewhere like this? I swear, I almost took him down to his details, his monotheism, his thumb joints and cardigan. To whatever place in him is his last place, but I drove on, stomping the gas as an act of restraint. There's a pie place up here somewhere. I mean, what to collect of our people, but eyebrow hairs and neuroses. I mean, the only body that can end my body is my body in the end, and sleep works in the same way, with the same sort of chest losing light. Self-diagnosis is misdiagnosis even when you're right. Slipping a palm on sky as if a wet glass table, the birds twinge underneath/above my mother's hand. She reports, these are flying death. I know the starlings do not know a single gin-rosed cell of my uncle's liver. Still, alcoholism doesn't run in this family. It has a room in the house with no chasers. Still, you have to read an x-ray like you have to read tea leaves. So show me a sheet of glowing bones and I'll show you something that is still at least 1% divination. I get a drink with my friends and I keep a soft count in my head of the day, week, month, year, not because I'm gone or sick or twinging open with birds already, but because I know I don't know where and how and when any flyable sky in my house could pass out to rain. The same way some unflowering plants clutch medicinal properties in the ribs of their roots is the same way I keep old phone numbers in a bad memory. This flooding basement of knowing versus just barely saving, a homeopathy of out-of-state area codes, their people in them loosely, nodding a finger into the caps of chanterelles. The mycologist remarks cold flesh, something that sounds dead but still sits in life, white and dirt-pocked, like little edible apathy. My sister doesn't take phone calls, too intimate is her explanation. I worry I will forget her voice somewhere, like a sudden cold spot sporing across a calf muscle, like trying to touch a world map in every place it isn't raining. How enormous her smallness when it decides to keep out of sound. I cannot tell her, too intimate, cold flesh, so I tell her. The problem was that Lilith was the first man, and driving home to a Michigan winter in a good driver's shit car is something funny or awful. You have to laugh off the white miles. My friend has shaved and bleached her hair like the last man she saw as someone gone now, and she wrung out his living for collared shirts, and Lilith ate no fruit and gets no credit. The tires stop pronouncing the road, start tonguing ice and death, real soft, but she corrects her steering, so did God slip on Lilith's smoking metal on the side of the highway / second X chromosome, shivering like a knife in a too soft hand to be about death, or did she bind her chest up, smooth as a snake, and feel like heaven too much to keep on earth? Thanks. The next reader is a Shaikh.
Hi. Oh God, I bent my paper. I'm Armia, but you guys can call me A. Also, another thing, can we just clap at the end? Because like the weird, awkward pause between poems just freaks me out. So yeah, let's just clap at the end, if that's okay with you guys. So anyway, I have 4 poems for you guys. 2 of them are kind of something I wrote recent, like one I literally wrote at 1 o'clock today. And the other 2 are some from like my portfolio last semester, which I took intro poetry with Andy, which is an incredible class. But yeah, so this first poem is called Inflammatory, and it's kind of, I actually was really inspired by an essay that I read from Jenny, actually, who's here. And it's like this image of like her feet swelling while in a flight, and I don't know, just a lot. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. But this is inflammatory. Another airplane to somewhere. My mother's voice dancing to Yad Ati Hai. I blame the mother tongue. I say she chooses to remember, memorize me at 18. In the time of green dress and uninked skin, I say in English, remember, Mama, I am another year older again, and it will keep happening away from you. This is our family business, the history of children dancing away from mothers until one day the heart remembers to miss itself and the feet swell alone, floating above land. So there's that one. And then the next poem is another airplane poem because honestly, Southwest should sponsor me at this point. Like every flight I've gone to, I've written a poem. Because I'm from Texas, and that like 2-hour, 45-minute travel time. It's in the poem. But yeah, this is Last Flight. My mother texted me saying, miss you, but in a happy way, as if it's easy as that, as if flying home away from home is linear, like the 2-hour, 45-minute travel time. Crying now, I think of my father, whose mind doesn't work the way he wants it to anymore, how numbers mean bills and tuition and tax and identity fraud. Nothing as simple as a soft, peeling feel of the times against his palm. Now I sit here, knowing I broke my spine with kingdom, with the weight of no longer living in his blood. In the white noise, I swallow my bipolar, my assault, and my woman that I love. I leave the crown hanging, my father still at the throne counting time. And this next poem, another dad poem, again on brand. And this is actually, like I've been trying to write this poem since spring break, and it is about the shooting that happened in Christchurch, but I recently read Terrence Hayes' American Sonnets for His Past and Future Assassin, and they like really I've been thinking about this poem, and I read his book, and I was like, okay, this makes sense now. But it's a very rough draft because I literally wrote it a couple hours ago. But again, this is American Sonnet for Christchurch after Terence Hayes. A gunman enters 2 mosques and leaves 50 Muslims dead. My father watches the nighttime coverage until he learns to unspell his own name. Sadiq, meaning truthful, meaning prayer until it is taken away from you. A gunman enters 2 mosques and live streams death. My father wakes up before dawn to pray for 50 ghosts. The sun is nothing but an orange peel they will never see again. I pretend to understand protection, hold my arms tight until I become the Second Amendment. A gunman enters 2 mosques and massacres our people. At the airport, I flinch as a man mispronounces my last name. Shaikh, meaning king, meaning safety until it is taken away from you. He looks through my books and quarters and underwear. He calls himself security. A gunman enters 2 mosques and I dream he kills me too. My name, no longer my name. Armia, meaning angel, meaning I am haunted by my people. My body full of 50 dead. So there's that one. And this last poem, again, dad poem. But and I actually this one is that was the first poem in my portfolio, which I wrote last semester. And I don't know, I just it's one of those poems that you write and you're like, I can't believe I wrote that, but I wrote it. And it I don't know, I always read it when I go back to thinking I can't write, then I remember I wrote this and I'm like, okay, it's fine, you can keep going. But this is Underneath the Shower Head. A nose ring will not make you a better person. My father likes to remind me that I am still his child by pressing prayer into my name when he says it and talking about gin. It is only my 3rd day in Texas and the house smells like kajur, holy water, and eggshells. I am hiding a rage wider than a dining table, brushing with an electric toothbrush. But sometimes I feel so far away, the feeling rolls inside me like a monsoon. But really there is no rain here, just a shower with my bird body flailing hot. Jinn, meaning demons, in my nose, because the more holes you put in your body, the more places they will live. This is for my father, the prophet who spends his life incandescent, searching for things he can't seem to find, and looks right over me wearing his old t-shirts. Which is to say, he doesn't know how the cavity appeared in between my legs and how empty a body gets after something like that. How I am lurching against the white tile writing this. Thank you, guys. We have Tariq.
Hi guys, I'm Tariq. I have 3 poems today. Bear with me, I haven't read in a while, so I'm a bit nervous and this is going down. Okay. This first one is one I've read a lot, but I think it works well with these other 2. So it's, where do you want to be in 20 years, she asked me. I want the honeysuckle tune of a black woman's voice in my ears, not for pleasure, but for comfort. I want the boom bass of that black man laugh to tickle my ribcage, like my uncle, or my papa, or my daddy, or myself. I want mini-me making big man decisions, or black man decisions, or good man decisions. I want my offspring offering solace to the wicked. I want offspring free of wickedness. I want a bloodline bereft of weak wills and fake promises like my uncle, or my papa, or my daddy, or myself. I need to be rid of that great God depression. I need my shark of a mother to rest her head easy. I need my boar of a father to get up off his ass. I need my nana to still be living. I need to still be living 20 years from now. So that was that one. This next one is called Papa Love and Mama Love, and it is about how my papa, which is my mom's father, loved my mom, and how my mom loves me. So, Papa Love and Mama Love. My mama curses my papa out his name. He is Black Santa, not Black Father. He gives her moons. He gives her lavender-scented love she can hold in her right hand, burgundy-stained love she can hold in her left. Mama curses Papa out his name and tells him she is tired of holding love and longs to feel it. She says her arms weigh heavy and her heart not heavy enough. She says, I miss you. I curse my mama out her name. She is Black Santa, not Black Mama. She gives me sons. She gives me hard-earned loves I can hold in my right hand, sweet, tired loves I can hold in my left. I curse my mama out her name and tell her she does not have to work to love me. I say my heart is heavy. I say I miss you. She says, I have been here your whole life. I say I miss you. And this last one doesn't have a title, but I used to spend weekends at my Nana's house, and once I hit my teenage years, I just didn't come over as much, and so I spent a whole week over spring break at my Nana's, and this poem kind of came out of that. It's a love poem. Lovebirds are the blue jay and red cardinal that visit Nana on Sunday sunrises. She says they are her mother and father visiting. She says she sits and talks to them all day. The family mocks her and she says that's okay. I will come to you a feathered bird and you will speak to me with love and reverence and respect and love. You will hear me chirping in spite of myself and you will miss me like a love. A love song is the hospital music playing in my sister's birth room. Papa is standing over the hospital bed and he refuses to hold the newborn like he does with all his grandchildren. He says his greatest fear is dropping us in his first embrace. He says we are much too precious to touch just yet. My Nana tells him he won't hurt us, and he politely disagrees and tells her it is okay to love like this. A love seat is the rocking chair Nana buys me for my 4th Christmas day. She tells me it is time I stop loving her chair and start loving one of my own. She says we will rock in rhythm and eat white rice and watch Winnie the Pooh until we are coated in honey ourselves. She says, I love you so much. Her eyes crinkle a bit. I love you so much. Thank you. Next up, we have Gnesis.
Hey, I'm Gnesis. I'm a senior. I'm not a professional, so I'm reading off my phone instead. I'm a prose writer and Shaikh. The context for this is kind of supernatural things are afoot, I guess. That's all I can think of. It's called Girl Eats Girl, and it's not the beginning, but it's also not deep in the story either. I stood in the smoker's area, not smoking. I was cold as hell, but I could stand that better than my peers. The cafeteria was annoying, cramped, smelly, and overcrowded. I never got a table to myself. Some poor group was always saddled with me for lack of space, leaning as far away as a shared bench allows, and giving me wary, sometimes pitying glances. I slipped out the door after a freshman shot me a sympathetic look for the 10th time. The smoker's corner, tucked between the cafeteria and gym, was usually empty since Soldan started smoking there. Its usual residents, heavily eyelinered goths and other alternatives, had fled at her arrival, choosing to dodge teachers and smoke furtively in the bathrooms instead. Soldan appeared from inside and nodded at me. I figured she was in a good mood if she was acknowledging me at school. I knew she smoked during lunch because her parents didn't put money in her points card. Everyone else probably thought she skipped for fun, or to piss off the lunch aide. She leaned on the wall a few feet from me, pulling out a cigarette and tapping it against the side of the pack. Once lit, the tip burned orange for a moment, bright, before curling into ash. Smoke rose lazily above her head. I waved my hand to dispel the fumes drifting towards me. What are you doing out here? You don't smoke, Soldan smirked. And if they catch an AP student like you out here, you'll get in trouble. I don't care, I replied. She didn't say anything else, only took another drag. The tips of her fingers, poking out of the holes in her gloves, looked blue. I had a flash of memory then, mainly of her fingers, back when they were crooked and dark purple, taped together to straighten them as they healed. She hadn't flinched then, not when they'd accidentally banged on lockers or brushed people's shoulders with book bags. Just acted as if nothing was different. It wasn't the first time I'd seen her come in with unexplained injuries. Once she lost her voice, and every time she spoke, usually to swear at someone for she was in a foul mood that week, it came out as a scratchy rasp. So she communicated all in glares and rude hand gestures. But I noticed she never unzipped her jacket from below her chin. In the bathroom mirror, her head bent to wash her hands. I could have sworn I saw the top of a large, dark shadow on her throat, like a handprint. She soon caught me looking and pulled her collar up. Soledad was better at handling pain than most. I exhaled and she did too. I glanced over out of curiosity. She had her cigarette in one hand and the other burrowed deep in her pocket. Her lips were trapped from the cold and she gnawed on the loose skin, pulling it off with her teeth. There was a fine tremor to her hand. Do you ever have a dream that keeps repeating? A recurring dream, I said. I've never had one. Soledad flicked ash off her cigarette, smooth and unconscious. Well, I'd never either, but I've been having one lately. She went quiet. I didn't know what to say. It wasn't like we were friends. We'd had passing conversation over the years whenever we were pushed together by school, my mother, proximity, and other forces outside of us. Had we suddenly become friends without my noticing? Were we going to start talking about our inner adolescent feelings and say deep, tedious shit to each other like last night I dreamt? I was intrigued. Yeah, I've been having whatever you called it, a recurring dream. I'm lost in the woods, and I'm being chased. Full out sprinting, both me and this thing. I don't know how long I've been running. It feels like forever. There's no light. That's the weirdest part. Well, not the weirdest, it's just, there's no light at all. No moon, no stars, nothing. Just black. And I must not have my scarf on because I keep feeling these branches and the ice on them, slashing my face. They're so cold, it feels more like I'm being cut, over and over again. When I touch my face to check, it's wet, but I can't tell if it's water or blood. Anyways, I'm running so hard I feel like I'm breathing in shards of glass. The air is freezing and I'm moving fast, you know, but I can feel it catching up to me. I can hear it breathing, deep, heavy breaths. It's so big. I can feel the heat of it on my back as it gets closer. I know it's not just an animal. I know it. But I also know it's not a person. I don't trip. I'm not like those white girls in the movies. It just catches up to me. Always, when I realize I don't know what it is, I feel sharp teeth clamp around me. And right when it bites down, when I can feel each individual tooth sink through my jacket, I wake up. And that's it.